Parshas Shmos. I'd like to dedicate this year Le'ilui Nishmas to Rav Yosef Dov Schwartz, Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha, whose Shloshim is today, and for a Refuah Shalema for Moshe David ben Leah. In this week's Parsha, we have many subjects. Among them is the burning bush. The episode of the burning bush is what appears to be the first confrontation, or the first appearance, so to speak, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu. The first interaction. HaKadosh Baruch Hu introduces himself, and he does so as follows. He says, Anochi Elokei Avicha, I am the God of your father. Elokei Avraham, the God of Abraham. Elokei Yitzchak, the God of Isaac. Ve'elokei Yaakov, and the God of Jacob. The Meforshim observe, Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik asks explicitly, why the repetition? The God of, the God of, the God of, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And this is familiar to us. It's also at the beginning of our Shemona Esrei. We say, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu, blessed are you, God, our God and God of our fathers, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, v'Elokei Yaakov, God of Abraham, God of Yitzchak, and God of Yaakov. The exact same language. What's the question? It could have easily said, grammatically, Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Apparently without any loss of meaning. And the question is compounded because in a subsequent verse, in chapter 3, verse 15, Shmos Gimel Tesvav, says, Vayomer Oder Elokim el Moshe, and God said additionally to Moshe, this is after a discussion, Kosomar b'nei Yisrael, so shall you say to the children of Israel, Hashem, Elokei Avosechem, Hashem, the God of your fathers. Again, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Shlachani Elechem. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob sent me to you. And now, here's the compound question. In Tezayin, the following pasuk, the very next pasuk, says, gather the elders of Israel and say to them, Elokei Avosechem nira elai, the God of your fathers appeared to me. Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So why is it that in one phrasing that appears twice in close succession, the word Elokei is repeated each time each one of the avos is mentioned, and yet there's another time at least at which it's not? What does the introduction of that word, where grammatically it would have had the same meaning had it just said Elokei Avram Yitzchak Yaakov? What does the introduction of the word Elokei before each one tell us? So the Meforshim comment on this, and Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik says that each of the avos, this is not his observation, but it's the formulation of an answer. This point is not his observation, it's in Kabbalah. Each of the avos had a specifically designated attribute. Avram's attribute was chesed, kindness. Yitzchak's attribute was gevura. Yaakov's attribute was emes, or tiferes. Gevura is strength, and emes is truth, or tiferes, a harmonious blending of chesed and gevura, of kindness and strength. In other words, each one of the avos was different. Each one had his unique attribute. Presumably, each one was about chesed, each one was kind, each one had gevura, each one had emes. But each one of them excelled in a specific midah. Now, we see something along these lines reflected in the parsha preceding, when Yaakov gives a bracha to Menashe and Ephraim, and he crosses his hands to put his hand on Menashe before Ephraim. Now, presumably, if he has a power of bracha, he can make anybody be anybody they want, or he wants. But apparently that's not the case. Although there is a power to bracha, there's also a power to predisposition and to attributes. And we see this as well for Moshe and Aaron. The Torah says in the very same pasuk, says, Hu Aaron u'Moshe, and then it says Moshe v'Aaron. This is in Parshas Re'eh, in Perek Vav, Psukim Chav Vav and Chav Zayin, 6, 26, and 27. Begins by saying Aaron and Moshe, and then it closes the verse by saying Moshe, hu Moshe v'Aaron. And Rashi there observes, Yesh mekomos shemakdim Aaron leMoshe, v'yesh mekomos shemakdim Moshe leAaron. There are places where, when the two are mentioned together, Moshe and Aaron, who are brothers, when the two are mentioned together, that Moshe is mentioned first, and there are places where Aaron is mentioned first. Why? To tell us sheshikulim shnehem ke'echad, that they are equivalent. So they're different, but they're equivalent. The Torah Tamima says something similar in our verse here in chapter 3, in Gimel Vav. He quotes the Mechilta. The Mechilta says, on the verse it says, Okay, Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. The order, the sequence. Avram comes first. Yitzchak comes second. Yaakov comes next. You might have thought that whoever's mentioned first is more important. We have a general rule of construction. Rishon Chashuv. The first one in the list is considered the most important. Talmud Lomar. So the Torah comes to tell us in Parshas B'chukosai, V'zacharti, and I will remember, this is at the end of the Tochacha, V'zacharti es brisi Yaakov, v'af es brisi Yitzchak, v'af es brisi Avraham. It says in reverse order. It says, Yaakov, Yitzchak, Avraham. Magid sheshloshtan shekulim. Tells us that the three of them are equal. So everybody's different, but everybody's equal. How does that work? We have another question. Rav Ahron Soloveichik asks on this Rashi. We know the Rambam in Peirush Hamishnayos in Sanhedrin says that Moshe was the greatest of all. He was the greatest prophet, and he was the greatest in intellectual capabilities. He was just the absolute greatest individual who ever lived. Lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe od. We say in Yigdal, which is based on the Rambam's 13 Principles of Faith, Yud Gimel Ikorim. So how can you say that Moshe and Aaron are equal when Moshe objectively is the greatest prophet of all? Further compounding of the problem is that in Shemona Prakim, the Rambam says that everyone has the potential to be like Moshe. Now, what does that mean? So Rav Ahron explains, based on the Rambam, that means everyone has the ability to fulfill his potential. That just like Moshe Rabbeinu fulfilled the potential that he was given, and he was given the greatest potential of everyone, of anyone who ever lived. So we all have the capability, as individuals created in the image of God, we each have the ability to fulfill our potential. But what about these differences? Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik says that this is reflective of a notion that we see time and again throughout the Torah, which is that each of us has an assignment. Each of us has a mission. And we are uniquely equipped to fulfill that mission. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says that we differ one from the other. Bקול, במראה, with our voices, with our opinions, with our appearance. That's why we have photo ID cards. That's why we have voice recognition. We differ each from the other. And the Meforshim explain that is because each of us has a unique mission to fulfill. In the Kriya Shema, it says, V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol moladecha. You should love your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your might. Now, I believe that those translations are not as refined as they could be, and that Emir Hashem will be the topic of another shir. But I'd like just to conclude with this notion of ma'odecha, with all of your might. What is might in the Torah? We say koach, we say gevura. We don't say ma'od. What does ma'od mean? Ma'od means a lot. Vayera hadavar be'enav ma'od. Tov ma'od, very good, or very bad, very. Ma'od is a lot, it's much. It's that with which something exceeds a measure. And the Torah is recognizing and instructing us that each of us has qualities that are unique to us. We have our own ma'od. We are distinguished, whether it's in our intellect or our emotions, our ability to deal with people, or our ability to empathize or to sympathize, or the resources we have, the money that we have, the connections that we have. And we can all serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a unique way. And we all must serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a unique way. We are united in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At times, the Avos are referred to just as Avicha, your father, or as Elokei Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But we are also referred to, the Avos are referred to as Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, a unique relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's based on the unique attributes that we have. Our mission is to discover and to be aware of and to use our unique attributes and talents to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our own unique way. Have a good Shabbos.